Welcome back to Star or Shovelware, my name's Luke, and in today's review we're going to be checking out a game called Mothmen 1966, a visual novel with a fantastic 80s retro art style, which follows the story of three individuals caught amongst strange occurrences during the Leonid meteor shower of 1966. Inspired by Pulp Fiction stories of the mid-20th century, this one definitely has a unique feel to it, so let's take a look at the game, and make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy my content and want to see more. So, being a visual novel, as you'd expect, the storyline plays a prominent role in this one, and so I'm going to try and avoid spoilers and not go into too much detail. But the plot essentially jumps back and forth between three characters, with segments of it told and witnessed from their individual perspectives. We have a gas station owner and a couple heading out on a romantic evening, as well as a couple of side characters, so the cast is pretty small. But the writers do a great job of delivering their personalities through both the dialogue and the thoughts that they have about the other characters around them. Now, as with most visual novels, Mothmen is an entirely text-based affair, so there's no voice acting, and I recommend turning down or muting the text sound effect as it can get a little bit irritating. Comparatively though, the story in it is pretty fast paced, jumping quickly from one event to the next with very little downtime, and while this does reduce the overall playtime considerably, with the game lasting just over an hour depending on your reading speed, it definitely keeps you on the edge of your seat and remains engaging throughout. The plot itself though is quite a dark one. It's not scary, but it's definitely creepy at points, and it feels a lot like an X-Files story, delving into the supernatural, which, as the title suggests, include the Mothmen of West Virginian folklore amongst other things, and overall I really enjoyed the story. I felt it was well written, it kept me intrigued from start to finish, and while it left quite a bit to be explained, all in all I found it to be well structured, it maintained my attention throughout, and the pacing was just right for me. So far as gameplay goes, the majority of your time playing this one will be spent scrolling through text and following the story, with each chapter of the game taking place from a different character's perspective, but there are also a couple of interactive elements thrown into the mix to keep things interesting. Similar to choose your own adventure games, you'll occasionally be presented with a selection of decisions to make, with some of these providing additional dialogue and lore, whilst others actually affect the actions of the characters. And while none of these really appear to affect how the game plays out, you will occasionally encounter events where there's actually only one correct option, with the others leading to your death. But thankfully the game reloads just before this selection, so there's no real time loss involved. In addition to these dialogue options though, the game also features a bunch of different puzzle type events which are all relatively simple, and similarly can lead to you dying if you don't solve them in the correct manner, but I found these to be a welcome addition and a nice change of pace. Now, there's not a whole lot more to say in terms of gameplay, and I purposefully tried to keep things brief and a little obscure to avoid spoilers, but what I will say is that despite its short playtime, Mothmen is definitely amongst the better visual novels that I've played. I enjoyed the way it jumped between characters, giving you an insight into their own unique perspective as the game's events unfold. The minigames and puzzles worked well to break up the dialogue, and overall I felt that the plot and atmosphere of the game did a good job of delivering the Pulp Fiction motif that the developer was aiming for. When it comes to my main criticism, I would have liked to have seen some kind of branching storyline paths in the game and potentially some additional endings, with your decisions having more of an impact on the characters' actions and the way in which the game plays out. But there are two more games to come in the series, so maybe we'll see something like this in those. On the whole though, Mothmen 1966 is an enjoyable visual novel with a solid storyline and good pacing, and I'd definitely say it's the ideal visual novel for those who don't usually go for these kind of games. So visually, I really love the 80s retro art style in Mothmen. Everything is bathed in hues of blue and green, with important details highlighted in red, and the artwork in general is really well done, with a ton of detail to both the environments and characters. On the audio side of things, great stuff here too. Again, it's very vintage sounding and relatively simple, but the sound design is exactly what you'd imagine a more advanced title from the 80s to sound like. They're very chiptuney in their composition, but they give the game some great ambience, and the sound effects even offer a few jump scares at times, while the music works well in the background to set the tone. All in all, really good stuff here. Performance wise then, as expected, no issues at all on the Switch in terms of bugs or frame rate, and when it comes to gameplay, again nothing overly problematic. I did find having to navigate some of the menus repeatedly during puzzles a little bit tedious, and the puzzles themselves can be a little obscure at first, but generally everything plays fine and there are no real issues with the game. Overall, I think that if you're someone who usually avoids visual novels, either due to the sheer amount of reading they involve or the pace of the gameplay, then I suggest checking out Mothmen 1966, as it plays a little bit quicker and there are a few interesting diversions to break up the reading. But when it comes to my own personal rating, I'm going to be giving Mothmen 1966 3 out of 5 stars. Mothmen 1966 is a great visual novel, and I highly recommend fans of the genre give it a look at. But even if you're not a fan of visual novels, it's also a pretty short one and might just serve as the ideal title to get you into the genre. And so that about wraps it up for this review of Mothmen 1966 on the Nintendo Switch. So are you someone who's into your visual novels, and will you be checking this one out? Let me know down in the comment section below. As always though, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button to support both me and the channel. Thanks once again for watching, and until next time, take care of yourselves and game on.